Well, hello everybody. Here we are at Microsoft's Mix 2011 in lovely Las Vegas at the Mandalay Bay Casino and Resort.
Yeah,
I think that's the
the
full title.
hotel.
Yeah, well, that's right. I always like the it's capital THE as well.
Of course.
So you sort of emphasize it, and
You have to yell it out like the hotel.
it should be italicized, but that might be too much to ask. So as always, I'm Michael Cote with Red Monk, and I have a, for those who have watched the program for years, I guess, a returning guest.
Yes.
You want to introduce yourself?
Yes. My name is Hurley. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Chaotic Moon Studios.
Which is a fine Austin-based company, more or less.
It
and,
is.
We're
very attractive.
I've come to know that you have locations spread out through the world.
Yes, that's true.
So why don't you tell people what I actually found one of your cards that you left somewhere. And I need to ask you later on where you got these great little things printed up here.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
nice, thick stock.
Yeah.
You could almost
I
cut.
found those were at the power charging station.
There you go.
Yeah.
You could almost cut like some cold butter with this. They're so stable. But
That's true.
so why don't you give us a brief overview of what you Chaotic Moon guys do?
So, Chaotic Moon Studios was formed just a little over a year ago at South by Southwest. We launched the company. We do mobile everything. So we work with some processor manufacturers and help them with patents and security-related stuff. We work with phone designers, like for actual hardware for phones, and we do a lot of apps. And recently, we released a whole slew of apps at the last of 2010, beginning of 2011, two of which were the daily for Steve Jobs and Rupert Murdoch, and Grover, the monster at the end of the book for Sesame Street. Which, if
I don't want you to reveal the end of the book.
Which, if you ask, spoiler alert.
That's right.
Basically, if you ask anybody, that's kind of all we do. Like, people are like, oh,
Right.
you did the daily. But we do a lot more.
Well, how many other apps have you guys worked on?
Oh, God, dozens and dozens and dozens. I mean, we've done a couple dozen Windows Phone 7 apps alone.
Right.
That are already in the marketplace. And we have, I think, 3 or 4 more that will be released in the next couple weeks. So,
So I mean, the most pat way you describe what you do is mobile everything.
Yeah.
and I mean, one of the things I'm curious to hear you talk about is what that is, like what it is to be a mobile development, design, whatever shop. Because I think people are kind of familiar with, like, I'm a web app shop, or I'm a creative suite guy that does graphic design and stuff. But there is this kind of new shop that is like what you guys are, which is you come to us for whatever you want on mobile.
Exactly.
And like what does that look like?
So it's specializing not in a vertical or in a special technology or whatever. We're platform agnostic. We're technology agnostic. We specialize in mobile computing, right? So a couple of us came out, did a bunch of work at the Pervasive Computing Labs at IBM. We're made up basically of 2 kind of components. So X, kind of big agency, big interactive agency, big Pixar type
Right.
artist, and then ex Apple and R&D engineers and project managers and stuff. So they fight all the time, and the secret to our success is we let them hurt each other just enough to turn out a great product, but not enough to actually hospitalize
this
it.
would be the developer design collaboration.
Right.
People like Adobe used to talk about.
Ben Lamb, who's the co-founder, and I actually were going to do a presentation we pitched at South by, and we're going to pitch it every year until they let us do it, called "Everything is Beautiful, but Everybody Ruins It." And so basically, it was going to be like this kind of live mocking debate of developers who are like, this is perfect in the architecture and everything, but then the designer wants to add this thing, and it breaks everything, and Ben was going to take the design philosophy and be like, why can't you just have particle effects on everything? That's not true. I like teasing Ben about particle effects.
That's right. Why can't these programmers do all their stuff in layers or whatever?
Right,
I don't
exactly.
even know what I'm joking
Why can't
about.
I export it from Photoshop to iOS code?
Right. So as far as like this shop of a bunch of designer sort of interactive people and then developer people, like how many people do you guys employ or have under the roof?
So we started with 3. Big question we get is like, who funded you? How'd you start? So we started the company, 3 partners, no funding. We got laptops. We're firm believers that if you build software or you provide a service, then you should do that and sell it to people. And if it's good and it's actual business model, then you'll pay the bills and make money. Whenever we see a company that gets like, these huge tens of millions of dollars of funding to build like apps or something, and it always just kind of makes us laugh, and we're just like, wow, like how is that going to happen? But
and so I mean, if we can like rabbit hole on that a little bit, so would you say that you can self-fund yourself getting into the app business? I mean, assuming you have someone to pay you to do the app, but and then the implication there is that there's not necessarily like a value multiplier, to make some stupid term up, for getting like an investment. It's not like,
right.
I'm going to give you $5 million and boom, you're going to make $30 million.
Right,
like,
exactly. I mean, but that's where, to come back, I'm going to tie it into your original question, which is, what is this kind of like mobile everything? Because we have this slogan, right? All your mobiles belong to us, right? It's kind of like our little geeky joke, but it's true. So we have, we do everything. We've done original titles with Microsoft Game Studios, for example. We've done original titles that have been featured by Apple. We've done big projects for big media corporations and movie studios and things. We're doing, right now, we haven't announced a partnership, but we're working with somebody who makes awesome, amazing battery accessories and stuff. We're actually designing some new ones and some new products with them.
Oh, so there's sort of industrial design.
So we right, exactly,
three-dimensional stuff.
Right, it's stuff you can actually buy and hold,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so we're doing management and marketing and systems around publishing systems and things like that. So we're really doing everything. And somebody, we get a lot of comparisons. Somebody compared us to BASF, right? And they said, well, Chaotic Moon, it was a guy, we were doing an interview in New York, and he said, well, I know who you guys are. You're not the guys who build all the cool mobile stuff I use. You make all the cool mobile stuff I use cooler. And I thought for a minute, like, we should steal that. It was a pretty good analogy, sir. But that's kind of true, but we also do a bunch of original stuff. So mobile everything. We believe all computing is going mobile. And you and I, as older gentlemen, have heard this for years and years throughout our career, but it's never been true, right? It's like, I remember being on a project back at IBM in 1997 where it was like, next year is like the year of the mobile, right? And it's coming at any time. Yeah. And it's taken a while to get here. And so, what we want to do is we want to help build the mobile ecosystem as a lot better computing paradigm than the computing paradigms we have now. What I don't want to see is all of the stuff go from, we don't want to take all the PC stuff and be like, and now it's on a phone, right? And now the screen's smaller and it works. We want to really change things. I mean, we saw a great demo today, the Qantas demo in the keynote, which was exactly the kind of stuff that Chaotic Moon.
And where it was, if I remember right, it's actually sort of telling you you're probably not going to make your flights, and suggesting new. I mean, that seemed, and I mean, add on to this, or correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like a big realization of mobile UX design is focusing a lot on workflow, if you will, rather than having a suite of functionality and thinking about one sort of path that someone goes down.
So all these things we do, from hardware design to accessories to extend the battery life to apps that talk about the management of the phone, or they give you some functionality or some feature.
Right.
These, you have to do all of these. You can't just be like, I do apps or I design industrial design. Right? You have to do them all. There has to be a cohesiveness, if you will, to that experience. And as you know from the system management world, right, the big system management players, they compete on comprehensiveness, right?
Breadth, as they'd say.
Precisely, and that's what we're doing, right? So we can be your one-stop shop for everything, but we also work with a lot of other shops. I mean, somebody said once that we're not building a company, we're building a cult, because they were trying to bid something out with somebody they thought was a competitor of ours, and we're like, actually, we helped start those guys, what I mean? So and they were like, what? And then it's a comprehensive approach. It's a very all-encompassing deal. And the Qantas demo, I think, really summed it up. It's an airline app that told you, hey, I see you are scheduled for flight, and it's coming up, and it's about an hour before, and GPS says you are nowhere near the airport. You are also not moving. You should get your ass over there.
Right.
Or here's some other flights you can use, or I can click and deep link into directions. Right. That's a great example of kind of mobile computing, if you will, right?
And so I mean, just as a definitional thing, like obviously mobile means smartphones, iPhones, and Android, Windows Phone 7. So like when you're saying mobile, I mean, other people use phrases like edge devices, or what's the Jobsian term, the non-PC or something like that. But
there's something in the middle.
Right. But like give us an idea of the set of what you mean by mobile.
Okay, so when we say mobile,
devices.
so we do things with netbook operating systems. We do, obviously, a big focus is mobile smartphones, and not just smartphones, but phones in general. If you go overseas, I'll be in Bali next month, and there won't be a ton of smartphones, but there'll be a ton of phones. And in those areas of the world, they use them for commerce and trade minutes, like their money, and do all kind of things. So that's also a big mobile space, and that's actually a very big untapped market in our opinion. But we're also working on some research projects, for example, with an automotive manufacturer for heads-up displays, right? Mobile computing, like in-car computing stuff. So basically, we would define mobile as it's computing you take with you or that goes with you when you're in transit, right? You're
Right.
putting it in your pocket. You're driving, from Austin to Houston. You're
Yeah,
on a plane.
I mean, it almost seems like computing minus desktop, laptop, and server.
Right.
And that's,
but by the way, those are the three things that are computing in our
yeah,
world
yeah,
today,
yeah.
right?
No, and pretty much everything else that is probably somehow a computer and also on a network to some extent, right? I mean, although
we have some TVs in our labs that run,
Right.
an operating system that allows you to write apps and widgets and things for them. But we don't really, consider that mobile. We consider that more as we do servers and PCs, which is all of the stuff you do on mobile has to be able to tie into all of these other things you already have and you already do, right? So if you're going to have an app on your TV, maybe it gives flight status or something like that, you're going to want a way to have that information you did when you were in the car or sitting at work or whatever that you've brought home with you transferred to all of those devices in your home and stuff. So
Right.
we do look at a larger ecosystem. We just focus on, being kind of the mobile experts.
So looking at that mobile space, if you will, like as a whole, like what, to ask a broad question, how would you characterize like what's going on there now? Like what's kind of like the top three things in there that are exciting, and then who's trying to like move in onto it? Like what's the landscape of like Apple and the handset makers and Android and like?
Well, I think it's a really interesting time to be a consumer, right? That's my answer, because I think we have a couple of different shifts that are going on, and one of those guys do not know that you're filming. But one of those situations is kind of this rise of Android, and don't get me wrong, we do a lot of Android development, love those guys, love Google, but at the end of the day, it's like, what's really driving that? And what's really driving that is Apple won't license you their OS, and
Right.
Microsoft and other companies traditionally charge you for it. So if you're trying to increase your profit margin and there's a good operating system that has a bunch of apps on it, of course, as a manufacturer, you can put it on there.
Yeah.
So I think some of that's
It's sort of free, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Right? I think some of that is free does sell very well. But I think that what we're seeing is we're running a very dangerous course. You said, what are the top three things? There's one I'm really, really focused on right now, and that is this homogenization of applications. What I mean by that is there's something to be said for consistent user experience, but there's also something to be said, on the other hand, for cheating users. As an app developer, I have, phones. I mean, I have 2 or 3 phones on me right now, right? I have all of these different tools, all of these things I use. And one of the things that I have, a real respect for is users don't get all those devices. They don't get devices for free.
Yeah.
They don't get developer kits and cheap devices. They save all their money and they buy that one device that they can buy. And it's an iPad 2 or a Google Zoom or whatever the case may be, a WebOS tablet, whatever, And the thing is they're sold a bill of goods. When they're at Best Buy or wherever they're buying it, there's a little sheet that says, here are the features. It says, much faster graphics and all of this processing and everything.
Right.
And as developers, what I'm seeing mobile developers do is, we're not saying, great, we're going to take the Cote app, or the RedMonk app, and we're going to exploit the crap out of it on that platform. And by the way, it will be different than it is on the iPad. And, the manufacturer will love that, because they'll say, hey, this is, makes us different, right? The app does these extra things, or it runs better, or whatever. And there's a bunch of reasons to do that about, who would love it because of that. But at the end of the day, it's like, that's delivering value to that consumer who bought that because they thought, like, well, the graphics are going to be smoother when I play Angry Birds, or faster when I do the 3D game, right? And what I see is HTML5, which we are big fans of. It's not a ratified standard, but we support it. We use it in a lot of things. But one thing we don't use it for is for saying, okay, we're going to take the Cote or RedMonk app, and now it runs on everything, and there's one code base we manage.
Right.
Because we've seen
the right ones weren't run anywhere.
Because we're old guys,
platform.
right? Because we're old guys, and we've seen this story before, right? And before there was, all of this stuff, there were things like Java, right? And there were other things that were like, oh, well, you're just going to do it this one way, and then everything works everywhere. And it's like, no, it doesn't really work out that way. And there's a variety of reasons, political and social and economic
and budget
and everything.
And things like
that.
Yeah,
exactly. But at the end of the day, the one thing that I really harp on, what I'm seeing is, I really fear that the homogenization of these apps, that in the effort to get a consistent user experience, you're actually cheating users out of the ability to really exploit these devices.
And so
I'll give you a great example. Microsoft showed off the pins today, right? They pin things with the information, the info tiles. I love those.
That's like pinning web apps to the Windows desktop?
To the front, so they can pin
like
like the Qantas app or some of the others they showed.
Yeah.
Okay, but I can't do that on iPhone.
Right.
So why would I homogenize it and say, well, nobody gets that feature because I'm only going to do the lowest common denominator of things I can do across all phones? That's a fantastic feature, and if I can do it there, I absolutely should. Because the person who bought that Windows phone, they heard all the things like at the keynote today, and they bought it because they're like, hey, I'm going to be able to get access to this information in this way, or the deep linking, right? And I see too many people as developers not implementing those type of features that are platform specific because
well,
I mean,
as you keep saying, we are old guys, right? But I do feel like even for the young guys, there's a part of the culture that exists of developers where you try to avoid customizing per platform.
Right.
And over the years, that's become something you're not supposed to do. And yet, in the mobile space, it definitely, and you probably have a better sense of this than I do, as you just went on about, but it seems like it's kind of the opposite of that. Like in fact,
I think mobile almost like dictates that you have to do that. You
right.
have to say,
you want to do everything native, if you will.
Well, you want
or more stuff than you would think.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to do everything native, but you have to look at the frameworks and the tools that are provided and say, okay, I'm designing the app.
I guess in this context, native means something specific. It's more that, as you're saying, you shouldn't be afraid to take advantage of an API that only exists on one platform.
Right.
I mean, whether it's a web or a native code that you're running.
The seatbelt in the plane we'll fly home on is different than the one in our car, is different than the one on the space shuttle, right?
Right.
And it's kind of the equivalent of saying, we're going to just have a seatbelt. It goes across your lap. It's awesome, right? And there's reasons that we don't do that. And there's core reasons, like automobiles, the 3-point harness was designed for very specific reasons. And there's contextual reasons, like the environment you're in.
Right.
You don't need a 3-point harness in a plane, because the reality is if that plane has a really big problem, you are screwed.
That's right.
If you've ever read Bruce Mal's Massive Change, he has a great thing on planes about how everything inside the plane's designed to give you the illusion of safety and security.
Right.
You're doing something that you should never do, which is riding on a big tank of fuel, at hundreds of miles an hour.
Right.
But it's like that. I mean, I think mobile dictates that we start really saying, we're going to push a processor furthest we can. We're going to push the graphics as far as we can. We're going to push the platform, the interface, how people interact with it. And we're going to do it in the context of the user doesn't know that, oh, well, that's that way because it means it also works on the Windows Phone 7 or on the Android or on the Bot or on the Amigo. They just know that, this is the way my things work. This is what I bought. This is what I was sold on.
Right, and to your point, I mean, vendors in theory vendors would love that. And people have something to sell will love it because it gives them differentiation points.
Sure,
and then in theory, if it's done right, consumers should like it because it gives them, way too much choice.
It gives them the value,
a lot of
features. It gives them the
features.
value they were promised, right?
Yeah.
Again, we spend a lot of time working with retail establishments and working with people who are buying phones, and we have a user group, and I get to go shopping with some people and be like, well, what's attracting you? What are you liking about this? What are you doing? And they always go to that, like at Best Buy, they always jump down to that little thing and they're like, oh, well, it says it's faster and it has more graphics. And then you hold them up and you put the same app and you're like, well, what's the difference? And they're like, I don't know, like, I don't see it, right? And in a lot of cases, there's things you can't do that with, but in most cases, you can. And by the way, you'll get better performance sticking to the frameworks. You'll get a lot better support from everybody involved. And I think you make a better product. And by the way, it's harder and it's more expensive. Yeah. It's true.
Right. Yeah.
But doing things right often is.
And so, I mean, if there's sort of a gradient of swings over here and then customizing to each platform is over here, I mean, it sounds like you would push it way over towards customizing.
Yeah, we're more over on that side. But again, we're talking about the apps. People often confuse in mobile content with apps. Content, absolutely you can use HTML5. There are absolutely very cool things you can do with that, right? You can use a lot of JSON and XML and all of these things. So we're not saying like, oh, everything if you're on iOS has to be in a core data database, right? We're not saying that everything has to be in the new SQL database that they showed today that's going to be coming out that's built into the phone OS.
Yeah, I think, it's more just like, you shouldn't be afraid. In fact, you should explore using things that are unique or on each of the platforms or phones or whatever it may be.
Exactly. The web is the great common denominator programming mechanism, right?
It
is. And we're having more seemingly browser wars happening right now. Like we've already lived through 2 or 3 times, right?
Sure.
And it's like, yes, you should explore that. You should find out what's unique about that platform. You should find out what is going to make that user experience really, really special. And it's going to be something super simple. And the super simple stuff is always something that's hidden way down in the SDK that everybody overlooks, that nobody talks about at a keynote. And you're like,
Right,
whoa,
right.
that is the best feature
Like
ever.
what would an example of a super simple thing be from the past, or something that you would make up just to give people a sense?
Oh, I mean, I think, well, I'll tell you, I think, again, I mean, I hate to harp on what we saw today here at Mix, but I really think that the deep linking, okay, into an app, into a place in an app is fantastic. Now, that's not HTML5 or web stuff. It's taking from that, but it's built into the native thing. And we heard it here, but when it comes out, how many developers that weren't here are going to go digging through documentation and find out, oh, I can actually take you to a stateful point inside my app, to a specific screen. I think it's an incredible feature.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it did seem nice because you don't have to navigate to that point, right? I mean, it's to use the web terminology, it saves you clicks to get to somewhere,
yeah,
right?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. But that's what I'm saying is it's not an either or, right? It's the right mix of both, and the right mix of both is very close to frameworks on the device you're working on, because they were written for a reason. There's an SDK for a reason, right?
Yeah.
You kind of stay there, and there's very good engineering reasons to do that. And then mixing in the HTML5 and your the cloud services and the things in the right mix. That's really where you end up. I don't think you're ever going to have a 100% completely all apps are native, or hey, all apps are HTML5.
Yeah.
As much as many of the web designers and people that we've met here this week would probably like that to be that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's also interesting because like on the cloud side, it's kind of the opposite, right? Like everyone wants to go towards homogenization or commodity stuff, and really make there be one back end.
Is that what you meant? On-demand
or utility computing,
grid?
whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But it's kind of the because the servers started out being exotic custom hardware where things were specialized, and now it's trending towards the opposite of what you're saying is happening on the client, or like that you like on the client side, where you want the clients to be specialized and take advantage of things. So it's a nice flip flop of what's been available.
At the end of the day, you're talking about providing valuable software. You're talking about providing value to users, and each case is going to be different, and each app is going to be different. But you have to start taking an approach of, putting yourself in the user's shoes. I recently got in a little bit of a tiff with a person, Mr. Mad Dog, at PosCon, and it was about, he gave a great example of how he was an end user and why the GPL was so great. And he said he has done his resumes in the same software for 25 years, and he got to a point where he couldn't do what he needed, and he didn't want to reformat it. And he went, because the code was GPL'd, he found it, and he downloaded the source, and he fixed it, and he recompiled it, and he finished his resume that night. And it only took him 4 hours. And you, sir, are not an end user. and that's the problem with everybody that's going to watch this that's a developer and all is we think of it, we're like, well, everybody does this, right? I mean, we often fix things that are trivial for us to fix. That it's a 2-hour support call for somebody who got their phone at a Best Buy or at a Walmart or whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean that points to all of my friends who are called upon in their family to fix computers.
Right.
Over the past few years, they've forced all those people to buy Apples. They're like, look, if you want help, first you buy an Apple, and then basically their service desk requests, so to speak, go down. And because a lot of the stuff is just it's simple, I guess.
Well, we forget what people are trying to do with the devices, and one of the things that I'd like everybody in mobile to steal from the Windows Phone 7 campaign is this concept of like, technology should do something for me.
Right.
I don't want to have to learn to use it. I don't want to have to be forced to do it. And I think everybody in mobile should just take that and just run with it and do their own versions of it, right? Again, the not to harp on the Qantas thing, but that was a great example of not having to do anything to have technology go, oops, more than a calendar alert, I'm watching you, know you're not in the right place, know you need to be here, making some assumptions and doing some things that are very valuable, that deliver a lot of user value to me in 1-2 clicks. I've already corrected the whole situation. I think getting off of that, you asked for a couple of things. The second thing I think we need to train is we need faster networks. I mean, in the worst way, right?
Yeah.
And the apps started small, now they're getting big. I mean, it's you remember downloading 8 megabyte apps for the Mac back in the day and being like, oh my god,
yeah, no,
this app is 12 megabytes.
I plugged into the Ethernet here at some point, and it was like 30 down and 40 up or something, which is for I understand in Korea that's nothing or whatever, but for here it's phenomenal. Like it's mega fast, and it is.
Yeah, but
there is a problem with
you get on your
network
phone
speed.
and you walk through the hotel or the casino and you can't get a call or get a signal, right?
Yeah.
And it's like as computing moves there. So the first thing is avoiding the homogenization. The second thing is infrastructure, right?
Right.
We need better infrastructure and better latency and fault tolerance. All of these things need to be taken into account.
Yeah, that was like earlier this week, Cisco said they're kind of like cinching up their belt and getting rid of the Flip brand and things like that.
Yeah,
and
I
was
know.
thinking like, that's fantastic, because what I'd really like them to do is just make networks faster.
Right.
Like, I don't really care about video conferencing and collaboration and all. I just want faster networks.
You don't want to work with anyone else.
That's right.
You just want to work faster by yourself.
Exactly.
Because if you could do the work of 10 or 15 people you would have worked with at a slower network
And then
speed.
I could keep being a hermit. That's Yeah, no, I mean that. Are there other sort of like sort of like missions you would like to see the mobile space go on? You had two there. I mean,
Yeah,
what else?
I think.
What are the other guiding principles you're operating under at the moment?
I think that there needs to be a lot more imagination, right? I mean, a ton of the apps. I was really disappointed, and apologies to Microsoft, but if you look at that board over there next to the left of us right now on that Windows Phone 7 thing, there's all of those apps, and they're all apps that we've already seen and done. And
right.
I loved the keynote today, but and it was great. They did the USAA app, but I didn't understand what the difference between it was and the one that was demoed on other platforms. Literally like quite some time ago.
Right. It's more that they've ported. It was basically an app where you can. It's funny, like it exposes archaic processes that need to be updated. But you take a real physical check and write the check, and then you take a picture of the front and back, and then you can digitally send the check.
Right.
Which is great.
Well, or you could deposit. USA is an amazing institution. They have some phenomenal developers. Michael Boucher there is an incredible guy, but you could have given me a check, right? And I can do that, right? So I thought they're the way Microsoft demoed it was maybe not quite. It should have been like Cote gives Whurley a check, and Whurley goes, "I am not driving to the bank." Snap, snap, and it's amazing. Yeah. But the thing is not harping on that one at all. There's so many things that are being done. It's like, wait, this is a brand new platform. Where's the here's this cool app nobody else has done on any other platform because of all these cool features, right? And it's like everybody's a little too focused on making money. They've all got the gold rush in their eyes on every time there's a new platform.
There's like a feature in, I guess Android has this too, but in Windows Phone 7 that the iPhone definitely doesn't have, and you probably know the name of it, but you basically, you can add little extensions to things, like send this photo to Flickr, whereas by default, you can only send it to Live or some crap. And like, that would be an interesting thing to think about is like, how could a USAA insert themselves into that workflow? Like where's areas where it would, I don't know if this makes sense, but where's areas where it makes sense to take advantage of that, or the notification stuff, and pinning things. But it's true. It is. It gets back to the first thing you're saying.
Let's face it. Everybody's doing the bare minimal they need to do to get an app
sure.
out and get it into.
You want to start with small successes so that you can get on to bigger ones.
Right. But they never go on to bigger ones, right? They always. And we're kind of the opposite as a company, right? I mean, the daily and several of the other things we've done are huge risk. They're the first of this and the first of that, and the first Apple subscription app, right? The first test of that system, and the first publishing infrastructure of its type, and so on and so forth. So I think we'd like to see other people joining us in taking a lot more risk and putting their credibility on the line. Sometimes it works for you, and sometimes it doesn't. But you do nicer things for users. You improve the user experience overall. You pioneer things. You do a lot. And for mobile to really get to the dream, that kind of Neil Stephenson, or William Gibson type, utopia that we think mobile computing will be, we really, really need to focus on pushing the boundaries and the limits. Now is an incredible time to be a consumer just because of all of the choices that are coming out, but it's an even more incredible time to be a developer because all of the choices you have and all the things you can do. And you don't have to do all platforms like we do. You may focus on one. You may focus on a certain thing within one. But there's so much opportunity to do so many really, really cool things. And I'm just not seeing enough of them out of us or anyone else.
And like on that note, like when people ask for sort of like a justification of satisfying all that opportunity, like basically a business case, if you will. I mean, what do you tell them as far as like, here's the monetary opportunity that should motivate you to want to pursue these opportunities? Because people are hopefully in a healthy way, always paranoid of technologists coming and telling them, like, give me some money so I can do cool stuff.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is sometimes, when we talk to customers, that's, we have incredibly honest, blunt conversations with them. And sometimes it is, you're doing this because you have to because your competitors did it. And sometimes you're doing it because it is just this really cool thing. It's almost a PR stunt, right? And sometimes it's very, very, very good business fundamentals. Now, when we spec out jobs, we always put a section on return on investment. And sometimes that may say, you guys are crazy. You're not going to get any money back on this.
Right.
We're expensive and you're nuts. But sometimes, customers look at that and they say, well, how do I justify this from a monetary standpoint? And it's, if you're selling an app for 99 cents, rarely are you going to make a lot of money. I mean, we have this illusion, right?
Sounds like especially if they hire you guys.
Well, if that depends. If their goal is to make a lot of money, we're going to architect it to do that. But the thing is you take, there's some really successful apps out there that have tens of millions of downloads, okay? So let's just pick a round number, okay? 100 million downloads over the life of an app. Average app is updated, quarterly or so. So take that and say it's been out for a couple of years. So really you have maybe 10 million actual downloads. Right? And then you take a certain percentage of those, it's about 18% what we find is people who had it, deleted it, somebody else got it, they got it back, right? And so you just start chaining it down. So, people think that if somebody's made $100 million on an app, right? And it's like, that's not the case. If that were the case, we would all be doing it. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you or building apps for people.
Sure.
I'd just be making original titles for myself. And we've done some original titles that have been really successful, but these are not, even something that is a top-selling app in any of the stores is not necessarily the kind of blockbuster you think it is. And it's marketed that way by everybody in the ecosystem because they want more developers, they want more apps, because that's what drives. It's not about the phone, it's about the apps and the consumer.
Yeah, no, I mean, what I always tell people is and I don't know if people catch on my careful wording, but there's an incredibly important perception that you can get rich writing mobile apps.
Right, exactly.
And maintaining that perception is like what's important to fuel.
But the
enough
fact
people
is that if you actually took the time to do it right, there is a lot of money out there.
Right.
But it's like you don't get to.
No, like you said earlier, like yes, it is expensive and it is hard. Like, like it's not.
I mean, you're not.
Doing something well isn't always just easy.
One of our biggest operations in our business is a service called Application Resurrection, and that's where you spend a lot of money. You spent your kids' college education or your company's budget or whatever building an app, and it didn't reach the metrics, and it didn't sell what you thought, and it didn't serve customers, and you just dump all of that to us, and we take it behind the curtain. We have a conceptual artist like re-envision it, and then we take it and we redo all of the art and all the development and everything, and we release it sometimes under your
you
brand,
guys are the
sometimes
cleanup
under
team.
ours. And that's one of the biggest areas of our business because so many people are just like in such a hurry to make all of this money that they hear about out there there's a lot of crappy apps. I mean, I would argue that we used to have this argument about like, well, between Mac and Windows, okay, Mac had fewer apps, they were higher quality, and Windows had thousands of crap apps, and it's like, well, surprise. Now the shoe's on the other foot, right? Because it's like now, there's tons and tons of apps out there. But it's like, really, go download, 100 of them just randomly that you've never heard of. Or look at the bad ratings and see how much stuff is just thrown out there in hopes that maybe it'll do good and I'll make money and then I'll invest in doing it right.
There's lots of spaghetti thrown to the wall, more or less.
Yeah, and you have to do it right the first time.
Yeah.
You have to do it right the first time.
So last question, and it's you've been really luxurious with your time, so I appreciate that. But so if someone wanted to start a mobile business, right, in the context of everything that we're starting, never mind not so much the technological choices, although maybe that's the most important thing, but like with your success and experience over the past year, like what would you advise them? Like what's the important thing to start doing when they start it up?
No, they should call me and I'll help them. I mean, we have been helping several mobile companies start. We've been incredibly successful, and we're taking that success and we're sharing it in the form of investing in mobile properties. So there's several apps that are companies that we've now helped out. We've invested either time or money or resource or all three. There's a bunch of people, so somebody that you and I know who shall go unnamed at South by said, "I'm on to you." And he said, "You can't be a system lord if there's no system, can you?" And and he's right. So we put out a kill order on him. But the reality is, look, for us to be successful, things have to make it over that kind of tipping point.
Right.
To do that, there have to be a lot of other people doing this. And it's in my best interest to help other
Yeah, I mean, this
people
is a very,
do
very,
things
very
and
open
do it the
source
right way.
community sort of idea. I mean, to
But that's how
generalize
we're,
it.
but that's how we're a
Yeah.
very open source company. So we're all about helping people. We may, call us. We may invest in you. You may be like, we're going to start a 3-man dev shop, and we'd be like, great, we've got work. We'll help you get that
Yeah.
started.
I mean, sort of generalize, it seems like the advice there would be that at this point, and hopefully at future points in the mobile market, that it pays off to be friendly and promiscuous with people. Like kind of hiding away and being isolated is less helpful than if you just sort of talk with people and try to collaborate with other people.
If you come from open source or understand open source, you'll do very well in how we see the mobile ecosystem and where we see it going.
Right.
Which is, it's like a lot of people compare us to ARM, because ARM sells to everybody, right? They're Switzerland, okay? And we're kind of that way. We don't really see anybody as competition. We may work with them, they may need us. We see it as this much, much bigger thing. And we're going to work with Google, we're going to work with Apple, we're going to work with Microsoft, we're going to work with Samsung and HTC and dozens of others. And we're going to do the best damn job we can every single time.
It's sort of like no one's your enemy, right? They're all potential friends or collaborators.
Well, it's even a little more different than that, and maybe a little simpler. It's each one, there's an opportunity to do something newer and cooler than you did last time. And that's what's really driving our success, is always like treating ourselves like, a lot of people, we have this kind of rock star thing going on. And just like a rock star, once that last album's out and like the initial sales are done, it's like, we're only as good as that. And the further that goes back without doing something new and big, then it's like, you know what I mean?
So second piece of advice, always answer, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
Keep that in mind, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's like, be very open, be very honest. I mean, there are so many opportunities. People often are afraid of their limitations, and they're like, well, if I tell people that, they won't hire me. And it's like, well, you don't know that. They may not need you to do that. There's tons of these very low-level and mid-level opportunities that are low-hanging fruit that are a great place to start getting into mobile as a developer.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thanks again for taking all the time. It's good stuff.
I appreciate it. It's good to see you again.
And we'll see everyone next time.